what standard of proof do you require to show that there has been actual corruption? What do we need to show that? And let's agree on what that standard is. And they're probably going to give you a where there's smoke, there's fire. All of this smoke about Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, but there's no fire. Like, you see the smoke, but you're unwilling to connect the dots. But then when you go to Trump and you say, but crypto coin, but golf course, but plane, and they say, where's the quid pro quo? And you say, well, we can't prove it, but where there's smoke, there's fire. That's the point. The average debate enjoyer, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you.
I was this close to wearing a shirt that looked exactly the same, that was the exact same color. It would have been too fucking planned.
Oh, it would have been like when Gen Z and I did that debate with Pisco and we were both wearing the same suit. Like it's, you got to, sometimes you got to do the Reservoir Dogs thing.
My picture, by the way, it is straight. It's my camera's at an angle. It looks so silly. I might just take it down because I hate it. But it is straight.
We'll take your word for it. You heard it here first. Tyler's straight, but you have to take his word for it.
No. My picture is not an LGBT.
The picture.
Oh, yeah, the picture, not LGBT, not celebrating Pride Month. It is straight.
Yeah. So gang, obviously, what happened, and the reason what Tyler's here to help me out with tonight is I did a series of debates with Pisco, and then going with the one with Dev, which was fucking hilarious, and that drama cycle. But there's going to be a number of other debates coming up. They're not all set in stone yet, but Modern Day Debate reached out to me and asked if I wanted to debate Loner Box on court packing. So I'm trying to get that set up. I think Gibbs is setting up a debate this Thursday. There's going to be a lot of fucking debates that are coming up in the future. And Tyler's going to help me do a little bit of debate prep. So maybe we'll play a little devil's advocate, and I'll pick Tyler's brain about how to respond to a couple things. But before we get into that, Tyler, I think you said you wanted to rap a little bit about the Dev. I don't know if it's a debate or a conversation. That thing went off the rails so goddamn fast. I don't know. So what did you want to talk about?
I just wanted to talk a little bit of shit first, because I'm somebody that watched Dev a couple of years back. I was a big fan during the SJW era when we were all young and bright-eyed and saw the internet through salad fingers and things of that nature. I was a fan. Dude was pretty rational, pretty definitely somebody that was in the center trying to objectively find the real truth in life, not somebody that would blame one partisan side or the other. And he kind of earned his bones on that. He kind of came up through that. The big thing I heard was the Vosh was evil thing. It was his friend's video, but he reposted it. That was when he kind of came onto my radar as somebody more than just, I'll catch a video here and there. And I started watching him much more often. And it was great. And suddenly it just kind of came tumbling down. With this situation in particular, I was looking through a lot of Dev's tweets, and it was specifically about two things. It was about Russiagate and it was about Hunter Biden, and seeing how he dismissed any wrongdoing from those things as just cope, and his justification as to why there was actually no corruption there, nothing to see here. Hunter Biden was innocent. It was all just obsession with Hunter Biden's cock. Mm-hmm. That to me was his metric when it was his side. So now when it comes to Trump, using his own metric that he put in place himself, almost all of his arguments that he's using now just completely crumble. And I just kind of wanted to point out that, like, he became the person that he used to argue against years ago, and I don't think he realizes it. So I put together a bunch of information on these particular instances, talking specifically about the Obama administration and the Biden administration, and things that we know that they did that are corrupt, that reach a standard that Dev would agree to if he knew it. But he completely denies it because it's the side he says morally superior. So I'm just kind of here to shit on that notion. Well, again, also helping you prepare for debates like this, because this seems to be the new big topic. Oh, it's court packing talk. Let's pivot to how evil Trump is. Like it's always been Trump bad.
I mean, I think zooming out a little bit, this is something that I'm trying to get prepared for, because what you've seen, and by the way, I see some people are putting in support. I'm going to do that periodically or at the end, depending on how long we go. But I want to make sure we get a little flow going. But don't think I didn't see it. I appreciate you. the thing that I noticed in the Dev conversation, right, is that he desperately wanted to talk about Trump corruption. And even if you watch the back and forths on X, which was actually like, I was a little bit irritated by the way that he and Whick handled that. Surprise, surprise. But like he talked shit about my debate with Pisco, where he accused me of being a moral F slur or moral F slurring. And I was like, you definitely don't want to debate me on this, brother. Like you do not want that smoke. And then suddenly it's like, well, how come you're not going to debate me on Trump being corrupt? It was like, because that's not what I was talking about. Like, it's just a random thing that you came up with, but he really wants to talk about this in our debate. And because you and I had been DMing, I had been preparing for him to bring that up. And it really fell flat in its face because I was like, well, corruption and tyranny are not the same thing. You've got to show me that one relates to the other to make the court packing thing make sense. And then he went so far up his own ass. Like he self-destructed so hard where he was like, I have no limiting principles. Fuck it. I'm a call for political violence. Like his shit went so off the rails that it wasn't really necessary. But I do think this is going to become necessary because people are going to say some version of what he said, probably a more buttoned up version where they're like, well, Trump is so evil that anything we do, no matter how crazy, is justified. And then they're going to launch into their pet thing. It's like dealing with like a conspiracy theorist where you're like, you're at a disadvantage because they always get to talk about the pet issue that they spend all their time thinking about. And then you have to like figure out what their factual predicate is. And I think that's what it's going to be. They're going to launch into like their favorite fucking thing and be like, Trump is so evil because of X. Therefore, we get to do this wildly fucked up tyrannical thing that's so bad that the evil Republicans that we're shit talking won't do it. Like they won't do it though they have the power because it's, but regardless, we think we're justified. So, I mean, hopefully you can help me unpack a little bit of that tonight.
Absolutely. That's what I'm here for. I did a bunch of research. I'm ready to go. I watched all these hearings live. I read all the closed door hearings when they came out for all these things with Hunter Biden specifically, but also with Russiagate. I'm well versed on what the previous administrations were doing and the things that he said weren't that big of a deal. Don't even look here. And I'm well versed on his particular argument as to what he said Trump's actions are that are unforgivable. And I will show you the standard he sets for one and the standard he sets for the other are just night and day. For Trump, it's anything that appears corrupt is bad. I inherently deem it corrupt. No due process necessary. No arrest necessary. No violation of the law necessary. It's corrupt. I deem it. You accept it. Otherwise, you're sunk in Trump's. You're a Trump F. You're a moral F slur. And so I kind of want. You need the context of him completely doing the exact opposite for the other side to show that he's basically.
All right. Well, you want to like talk? Maybe it's more fun to role play it. Like just like I'll slide into character. So I'll do a little dev, and I'll throw like a little argument at you, and maybe you give me a response, and then we can debrief it. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it's fine. That's absolutely fine. So like at the end of the day, I have Vince Wilson of the Doghouse Dog Show. Vince Wilson is going to be actually doing this debate with me in person in about a month at GridCon, the DebateCon adjacent event that we're setting up. Somebody actually had the testicles to step up and do it like Dev did not. All he does is talk and challenge people that aren't experts in this to come debate him on something they don't even know. He said he did the research. So in this case, you're Dev. I'm going to be a little aggressive with you. Hey, you fat slob. You're not even an American. Why are you so obsessed with our politics when your country is a shithole that can't even sustain itself without America, helping it at the end of the day? But really going into it, you could say Trump is corrupt, but over all the instances where people have claimed Trump is corrupt, the only time that we've ever seen it is during they were hosting a party. The Trump administration overcharged $700,000. It went to court. It was deemed they overcharged $700,000 for expenses, had to pay that back. That money got donated. Every single other instance of Trump corruption is just speculation at this point.
Before I get into character, shout out Grid, shout out GridCon, shout out the DebateCon, and like if you guys are going to DebateCon or if you guys are watching the DebateCon content, make sure to watch the GridCon and all that as well. Some friendly faces, familiar faces are going to be debating there. I'm not going to DebateCon this year, but I probably will start going to it in the future. So this is going to be fun stuff to watch. But okay, let me slide into character. So I'll do what I'm going to do what I thought Dev was going to say to me during that debate. He didn't actually, he was so scattered, I don't think he actually was able to put the dots together, but I thought he was going to say something like this. Look, Trump is the most uniquely corrupt president in our lifetime. The policies that he's doing are so obviously just to line his own pocket and cannot be explained any other way. This is a guy who, from Trump University and any other number of well-known scams, not to mention, if I'm going to channel my inner Brian Shapiro, he's a 34-count felon who was convicted of fraudulent activities related to an election. And look, this guy, from top to bottom, like from the crypto to the annulments issues to the hotels and the golf courses, the endless waves, billions of dollars, more likely than not, flowing into his pockets, inexplicable pardons, people, crypto bros, fraudsters, all getting convicted. This is a uniquely corrupt administration. And because it is a uniquely corrupt administration, we require some sort of unprecedented measures to fight unprecedented corruption. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that all sounds well and good. And at the end of the day, in a perfect world, I'd agree with you. But what you're actually saying here is Trump is uniquely bad because I speculated. There's no proof he's done any wrongdoing. You're missing the key element, which is a quid pro quo. There was already an impeachment into Trump's activities in Ukraine where they lacked that element of quid pro quo, and it led to a failed impeachment. So these accusations are based merely off of speculation. And when it's put up against accusations to the other side of the aisle, the standard that's being used to delineate if anything was done in terms of wrongdoing or corruption is night and day. One standard is there's no arrests. There were no arrests. There were no convictions against Hunter Biden and his associates, particularly on this particular corruption with the pay-to-play scheme that they admitted to. But because there were no arrests, even though they admitted they were doing pay-to-play, they were admitting they were selling access to at least the illusion of Joe Biden, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But Trump bad because before he took office, he started a crypto coin, and the Saudis invested into it, and he's done the Emirates invested into it, and he's done absolutely nothing to benefit the Emirates since then. There's no quid pro quo. There's no exchange that can be lined up to show that any of this money he's taking is actually resulting in something he wasn't going to do prior. It's all just talking out of their ass from people that hate Trump.
Well, two things. First, there was absolutely no quid pro quo between Joe Biden and whoever you think Hunter Biden was talking to. Like, that was just literally his crackhead son making stuff up. So that has nothing to do with Joe Biden. And second of all, how on earth could you say there's no quid pro quo? How do you explain Trump pardoning convicted fraudsters? These are people who did white collar crimes, who stole money from good, hardworking Americans, and Trump is pardoning them. Meanwhile, he's getting nearly untraceable flows of money coming into him with crypto coin. Now, I'll admit, because I'm good faith, that there hasn't been a trial where they proved that this is like beyond a reasonable doubt a quid pro quo. But I mean, can't you make the reasonable inference when you get like crypto bro finance guys convicted and getting pardoned, and then on the other hand, Trump's getting billions of dollars in crypto untraceably? You don't see that there could be there's at least room for mischief there, that has, if where there's smoke, there's fire, and this looks hella corrupt?
That's just the double standard. The only reason we don't know anything about Hunter Biden's activities is because Democrats stonewalled the investigation. Joe Biden himself called the CIA when the CIA had information of Ukrainian officials discussing Hunter Biden's corrupt ties in Ukraine and made sure that that was squashed. Never saw the light of day until Kash Patel released it. We see other instances where Hunter Biden specifically was claiming that his father was his business partner. His father was sitting right next to him. He even wrote off on his taxes expenses for his father being his business partner. And when the IRS wanted to look into it, a Democrat named Leslie Wolf stepped in and stopped every single action. They wouldn't let them raid Hunter Biden's house. They wouldn't let them go into Hunter Biden's finances. They wouldn't let them ask members of the Biden family, including minors who accepted six-figure checks from foreign nationals, anything about that money. Like, why did they send you that six-figure check? 9-year-old girl in the Biden family, they weren't even allowed to ask these things. They weren't allowed to ask about dad in the emails, the big guy in the emails. They weren't allowed to look into any ties to Joe Biden. And their excuse, not Leslie Wolf, she never said this under testimony, but the excuse post hoc from the Democrats is the 60-day rule. 60 days before an election, you can't start an investigation into somebody. This investigation had been going on for 18 months. And when it came to Trump, they were more than happy to waive that rule. This just shows a clear double standard of when it's Trump, it's okay to speculate. It's okay to make inferences. It's okay to invent any sort of proof that isn't there. But when it comes to actual proof right in front of you, we need convictions. We need to see crimes. We need to see people in cuffs. Otherwise, nothing's there. It's a massive, dishonest double standard.
Well, but you must admit that he was convicted of essentially election fraud in New York. So if the standard is going to be convictions, if we're saying, okay, that's the standard, well, we have convictions. He's a 34 count felon, Tyler.
I hate to say this, but nobody besides you knows that. I listened to Anthony McCarthy, so I know that the way that the New York law was written, the mysterious upcharge that allowed that misdemeanor to become 34 felonies, which is based off of potentially 3 different charges, the New York law for voter election fraud, they essentially accused Trump of stealing the election. But people on the left don't admit that. So, yeah, absolutely. He was convicted. The actual underlying crime there was he misfiled payments. They turned it into a felony count. The voters had the chance to litigate this during the election. They didn't care. They voted him in. Whereas Democrats, they were lied to before an election.
Let's take a pause and get out of character. First of all, good to see Sean, potentially criminal, raiding over, and Clyde and his doggos showing up. So Doggo Brothers unite. Good to see y'all coming and hanging out with us. For those of you who just joined, this is my buddy Tyler, Average Debate Enjoyer. You should follow his YouTube channel because he never fucking self-promotes, and it's ridiculous that he doesn't self-promote. So get your shit together, Tyler, and do some self-promotion now and again. And Tyler is helping me do debate prep, because coming up in the future, I'm going to have a bunch more debates, some on court packing, some on other topics like the Dems' tyrannical and lawless character. And during these debates, it is likely, if we're following the playbook that's come up recently, that people are going to bring up Trump corruption. So we're doing a little bit of a debate prep session where I'm playing the role of Dev or some other, libtard.
Dev, Whick, and Destiny all at the same time.
Yeah.
Like you had to debate them.
It's tough, though. I actually have a hard time, even when I'm in character, I don't know if he's fallen off, but Destiny's debate style has gotten so emotive and low substance of late. Maybe that's just he gets out of his depth with me and he starts freaking out. But I have a hard time even doing that when we're role playing. It's kind of, I'm like, dude, come on. That the endless yelling and the triangles on head. It's a lot. So I won't do that because that's just going to piss me off and ruin my night trying to get in character there. But so since we have a little break here, let's catch up on supers. Lesson Cell, an update. I did reevaluate my position and I've been the same spot I started. I do think Democrats will lose their party to DSA. I actually am beginning to think you're right. I think that the Dems have been hiding their power level and letting the wolf into the henhouse for a long time under the guise of I hate Trump. And yeah, I don't think they have principles left to resist the socialists amongst them. So I tend to agree with you. Remy FVB became a YouTube member. Thank you, Remy. Appreciate the support. It really helps the channel. Enjoy all the perks of membership, including the super secret Discord area. And EDW Raptor splashing the pot with 5 memberships. Thank you, my buddy. And thank you for bringing over Clyde and all his doggos into the mix. Good to have the potential criminals joining us tonight. Okay, so let's zoom out. So it seems like the tactic that you want to use is you're saying the argument against Trump about Trump corruption falls into one of 2 categories. It's either the 34 count felon argument, or it's here's some stuff that looks bad, but we can't prove a quid pro quo. Right? Like the crypto, the golf course in Qatar, like those sort, the plane. Is it in Qatar? I'm actually not sure. I forgot where the golf course was, but anyway, those sorts of examples. And it seems like what your argument there, if I understand it correctly, is you're saying, well, if we were going to apply that standard to the Biden family, then we would find that they are corrupt. If we're saying like where there's smoke, there's fire is good enough.
And if you're going to apply that standard generally of just gifts given equals corruption, then the Clintons take the cake with the Clinton Foundation. So all you have to do is kind of like, if you're arguing Trump's the most corrupt, we're sticking to the prompt here. You're going to trust the most corrupt. Your definition of corrupt is just receiving gifts with no actual quid pro quo or proof of wrongdoing or arrest. Now that opens up Clinton cash. And now we know all this shit with the Clinton Foundation, doing all this corrupt shit for decades and kind of getting away with it because it was legal, as tap dancing on the law, just like what Hunter Biden was doing was technically legal. And then another wing of the argument is like the weaponization of the Justice Department. Trump administration, Trump is clearly going out there and saying, I want all these people fucking prosecuted. I think they did things wrong. Now, it does sound fucked up. He's not allowed to talk to his AG. There is a norm violation there that I don't like, that he's instructing his AG to do certain things and arrest certain people. And it's been getting thrown out in court. A lot of his cases have been getting thrown out because of the malicious activity. The Perkins Coie thing got thrown out. They had to go and do that a different way because Trump's big mouth got him in trouble. So I admit that Trump is using the justice system in a way that does norm violate and does seem a little bit strange. But what Trump didn't do was fabricate lies about his opposition in Oppo research secretly using Russian assets and then using his assets inside the FBI as a political actor to force this information into FISA reports, to force it into intel documents. There's whistleblowers left and right from all different parts of government saying, Democrat-friendly actors, and many of these people have been fired. Several of them have been charged. One of them got convicted. Many Democrat-friendly actors were working to force lies into the government with Trump Russia to go after Trump for things like Alpha Bank that had no substantive backing. It was completely fabricated. The Steele dossier, even when the Democratic Party offered $1 million, the Igor Danchenko list of lies could not be verified, not a single thing from the dossier, yet that somehow ended up in the FISA reports. And that was because of people like Peter Strzok that knowingly brought it in. Someone like Michael Sussman, who was knowingly pushing it into the FBI. And then there was the Obama whistleblower recently. Tulsi Gabbard released this information. We found that this intel report, that the guy that produced, the head of the intel report from 2016 was the whistleblower from 2017, saying he was lied to, bullied, and his job was threatened because he wouldn't put the Steele dossier into intel reports to say that Trump was being benefited by the Russians with their election meddling. It was something that the most intel agencies denied was happening. Obama forced it to happen. The whistleblower came out and said this. He was lied to sign off on it. His job was threatened. And then afterwards, the Obama administration buried the whistleblower report so that it didn't see the light of day until Tulsi Gabbard released it. Trump has never done anything even close to that with the justice system.
Yeah, so I think there's a few points there that we actually, it's like 4 or 5 that we should probably work through.
Sorry,
no, because I need to make sure that like I have this in kind of like what's the right word to put it? It's not like flowchart form. It's like when you have like a casual understanding of topics, so that when you're under pressure, you can just you can get it without having to think about it or look it up. Right? It's kind of it's locked down. Where I think I'm comfortable with that stuff, and tell me if this works for you as an argument, is it's like, okay, Obama is now worth about $70 million, right? The Clintons are worth, I think, a multiple of that. How did they get this money? Well, everybody knows how they got this money. When you stop being president, you're going to go on a speaking tour of all the Wall Street firms and all your donors, and they're going to give you between $15,000 and $50,000 a speech, and you're going to end up being incredibly wealthy. And you knew this when you were in office. You knew this was going to happen when you were in office. You knew who your donors were. You knew who was going to take care of you. There was no question it was going to happen. It was like an understood status quo. Right. And the same thing happened with AGs. Like, if you think that, Eric Holder, who's, Obama's wingman, right? But if you think a president, let's say President Bernie Sanders got elected. He didn't, but let's say he did. And he was talking about like, oh, we got to punish these Wall Street devils. And then 2008 happens, and there's all this bad stuff in Wall Street. You think that President Bernie Sanders isn't calling his AG and saying like, hey, you got to look into this? Like, of course, every president talks to their AG and gives them directions. What other presidents did, other than Trump, was that they created plausible deniability. They created the illusion of separation rather than actual separation. There's never actually been a rule that would prevent the president from giving the AG direction. And in fact, if the AG doesn't do what the president wants, they can just be fucking fired. So, this was all kind of like, that particular norm, I always felt was more like smoke and mirrors. It was not about there being real separation. It was about the president not having to take the political hit when an investigation was launched or when an investigation went badly. It was an illusion of separation rather than a real separation.
I side with that. I see that, and I kind of see what you're saying, like with the escalation as well. Trump's kind of just saying the quiet part out loud, but that is what they mean. If Trump going out and saying this quiet part out loud, I want Kobe arrested, blah, blah, blah. I want this person should be in jail. That person should be in jail. It doesn't necessarily mean Trump is saying put them in jail. There is also some plausible deniability with him as well. I just don't think bickering about that is a hill you want to die on in a debate. You just kind of point out, like, if that's the worst thing Trump is doing, look at what the other side has done with the justice system just in the last 10 years. They completely lied to it, fabricated it, used political actors inside of it to suppress one investigation and start one up with no actual merit. Like,
well, and here's the thing, like, if you, what's interesting about this, and I'm seeing some people in chat even taking this line, is if you say like, oh, other presidents would, had levels of coordination with their AG, which, by the way, in legal circles is like no one is surprised by this. Like we all we this has been understood forever. But they're gonna be like, oh, well, do you have can you give me some kind of like smoking gun evidence that this happened, right? But then again, to your point, that's exactly the thing that they're not going to be able to provide with Trump later. So if that's the standard, if the standard is I need to be able to provide you with a memo that links Obama or Biden to giving a particular direction to their AG behind closed doors, understanding, by the way, that executive privilege exists. You can't FOIA these things. There is no way to get these documents. So, there's all these barriers in place. But to the point you raised earlier, Tyler, that standard would never work in the context of some of the alleged Trump corruption. Like if you're saying his crypto was linked to pardons, it's like, okay, we'll prove that. Like, where's the document that shows that donations, or people buying his cryptocurrency led to pardons? Where's that evidence?
Well, then evidence would have to come from a merit of an investigation starting, B, an investigation maybe going into his communications and finding that clandestine meeting and those exact words that actually prove this nefarious intent. And until they have that, it's just speculation that looks kind of bad, and they're assuming the worst and using it as a fact. It's all Dev's argument is, and it completely crumbles once you start comparing his old tweets about Hunter Biden to what he's saying about Trump now. So it's pretty easy, I feel like.
So in terms of the flow chart, I think it kind of looks like this. Like they bring up corruption, and then I think you just ask them the question. You're like, okay, well, like what standard of proof do you require to show that there has been actual corruption? Like what do we need to show that? And let's agree on what that standard is. And they're probably going to give you a where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Level thing. In which case you go into, you're like, okay, but then you would have to concede that the Biden stuff with Hunter, the time that Biden asked for, the information about Ukraine regarding their concern about his conduct when he visited them, when he visited the country, be kept out of intelligence reports, this sort of thing. Like all that stuff would qualify as smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So you throw some examples like that about there. And if they say that they are going to require the document, which they couldn't really say, then I don't think there is any evidence that shows actual quid pro quo that Trump has done something for an illicit reason. I don't think such evidence exists. I don't know. Are you familiar with any?
Not that I know of. The only time it's ever been to court, again, didn't rule in Trump's favor, was they threw an election party, I want to say, and they overcharged, and they ended up losing that lawsuit and had to give $700,000 back.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing for the crypto. There's not even an investigation started yet. So anyone using that as a talking point is just literally talking out of their ass.
And I guess they could say, like, well, didn't people who donate get invited to like Mar-a-Lago? And didn't they get to have dinners with him and stuff like this? Doesn't that show a connection?
In the same way that Joe Biden calling into Hunter Biden's private business meetings with his business partners and just saying, hey, how's the weather? Unless they're discussing politics, unless they're discussing something like, hey, I will, because you donated this money, I'm going to give you X, Y, and Z special favor with my political power. Having him come to his property isn't that big of a deal. It's just, it's like inviting him, hey, I had my donors come over to my house and my wife cooked them dinner because they donated the maximum. You can do shit like that. That's not soliciting under a certain pretense. I used to be a server in a fine dining restaurant, and people, doctors would come in, like 20 doctors, and they just sit, and this pharma company would do this presentation, buy them all dinner, buy them all nice wine, and basically just groom them the entire time, but they wouldn't be able to use that dinner to solicit sale of their drugs. They would just push their drug on them and say, hey, you make the choice when you feel it's necessary after diagnosing a patient. And that's kind of how they incept it into your brain. You cannot ask for the exchange, but you can give gifts. And that's all Trump has been getting so far is gifts with no actual tie to a policy or action in his official capacity. And if you define it that way, how it's legally defined, and how everyone defending Hunter Biden defined it, then I think Trump's in the clear.
Now, what about the this counterpoint that Jefferson C. Post brings up, which is, I think, a fair one, by the way. Thanks for the two, Jefferson. A branch being a check on itself is a fallacy. So as I understand that comment, and maybe I'm getting it wrong, but as I understand that comment, of course, let me get back in character. Well, of course, no investigations have been launched. Trump is in charge of the DOJ right now. He's not investigating himself. So, like, how could you possibly think that no investigations being launched at present shows that there's nothing there? I can guarantee you that when the Dems take back power, there's going to be plenty of investigations.
Yeah, sure. And let's see what they merit. Until that point, you're just talking out your ass. You're making shit up. You're speculating, and you don't have anything to stand on until those investigations happen. So we'll see when the Democrats take the House. They're going to start looking into this stuff. Let's see if any of it gets recommended to the DOJ.
Yeah, and then of course, by the way, I'm not breaking character here, but one of the funniest things about all this it's such a sidebar because Dev said so much crazy stuff that people kind of like lost it in the sauce of his other insanities. But at one point during the conversation, he was like, "Yeah, we're going to investigate. We're going to follow the law. If they didn't commit crimes, then blah blah blah. Then we won't do it." It's like, and Whick asked him, he's like, "Well, is that before or after you pack the court?" And he's like, "Oh, after." Right. So it's like, okay, like once we change all the laws, then we're going to investigate. Yeah, that'll be that sounds fair and fun and good. Okay.
It's just so wild to me that he's gone full Josiah. Josiah was saying this shit about a year and a half ago on Sitch and Adam. He was saying, like, we have enough diversity inside the Democratic Party that we can just get rid of democracy, tell 50% of voters, sorry, you don't get to pick who you vote for anymore, and just make the Democratic Party the only party, like the uniparty of the United States, and everything would be just fine. And now Dev is advocating for the same thing for a whole generation because the Republicans need to be investigated for being on Trump's side. He wants to start a fishing expedition into every single Republican that didn't give Trump the finger. It's just wild shit to me. It's like not realistic. It's wild to me that people exist as adults, serious adults that think this. I can understand like a leftist that thinks all the dumb shit that they do, but Dev used to he's like a student of history. He's a smart dude. It's just crazy to me that he's at this point.
I mean, I don't know if you saw Josiah's post earlier today on X, but he, in addition to favoring all the things you just said and packing the Senate and packing the courts and breaking the filibuster, Josiah is now also in favor of changing the Constitution so that Mandami can run for president. getting rid of the you have to be, you can't be a foreigner to run for like, so it's like, okay, man, like like at a certain point it just seems like you're like an op. I don't understand where you're coming from, but okay, so maybe let's go a little point by point here, and I'll get out of character just so that I can make sure I have we're on the same information wavelength. So the plane, because let's start there, because that's the one that I hear get brought up probably the most, right? So a plane has been donated as gifted to the United States, and as I understand it, will if the plane was Qatar, right? Or Qatar?
Yes, it was Qatar. It was a $400,000 plane. Trump said he was probably going to give it to his library because Democrats successfully I think they passed it through the court that they couldn't use it for Air Force One.
Okay, so so this plane was given as a gift. It's going to go to the Trump library, probably speaking. It's going to cost $1 billion, people say, in order to retrofit it to have like president grade, Secret Service and amenities and all the different things that you need in order to have a plane serve as kind of like an Air Force One level plane. Now, if this goes to the Trump presidential library, doesn't that mean that Trump just gets beneficial use of it for his whole life?
I think he gets to use it after his presidency. Yeah, it was a gift from Qatar. I don't think anyone has any proof at all that Qatar got any special favor for this, that any other nation, Gulf nation that isn't either on the Abraham Accords or an Abraham Accords hopeful was going to get. Like, they're all getting the same shit. Saudi Arabia, fucking Yemen, Lebanon, who just made a peace deal with Israel this week to finalize the 2 months of negotiations they've been having to team up against Hezbollah. So anyone saying that Israel was attacking into Lebanon, and it's disgusting, just didn't follow the news that Lebanon was sanctioning it and working with Israel. But yeah, so I don't see any difference that Qatar got. I don't see anything that the UAE got from the crypto investment. I don't see any quid pro quo that we have provable.
Okay, so the plane goes. Okay, the plane's a gift. It's going to go to the presidential library. What happens to the plane after his death?
I think it becomes the U.S. government.
That's that's an interesting question, because like the thing is, he's like he couldn't be. What happens to the plane given by Qatar after Trump dies? Because it feels like if that goes to his family, it would belong to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation.
Even if it went to his family, what's an airplane to a family worth billions of dollars? Like, it's not that big of a deal.
That's a $400 million airplane. I think you can appreciate $400 million even if you're quite wealthy.
But that's a $400 million airplane, probably the sale price if we were to buy it today. To make that airplane, it was probably significantly less.
Well, but I'm saying, what I'm saying is that there is, I think, in terms of like the plane, a substantial difference. And I'm just looking at AI right now, so I'll have to do better research later. But if the plane goes to his family after he dies, versus it stays in the Trump Library Foundation, meaning it becomes like an exhibit in like a library, museum, or it goes back to the U.S. government to use for whatever purpose. That strikes me as very different than if it goes to his family, right? Because if it's literally in the library and then it's either back to the government or it's part of a museum, then I guess like the risk here is that he gets access to a plane for a few years after he leaves office.
It's just a gift. People don't realize that like companies and other countries give the U.S. and presidents of all sides gifts all the time. Sometimes it comes in the form of a $400 million plane. Sometimes it comes in the form of Bill Clinton calling up the prime minister of the UK at the time and saying, we need to get this airport thing settled before the election because I need it stabilized and prices to come down. So, at the end of the day, foreign friends are doing things for us. Individuals that are part of other countries are donating to super PACs. This happens all the time. They're trying to make it sound like because it's Trump, it's bad. Because he had a donors at his residence for a dinner. Like, that's what the Mar-a-Lago party was. He had a donor dinner, a high-paying donor dinner. Every politician does like 10,000 head plate dinners for their super PAC and shit like that, or for their own personal war chest. And that money oftentimes gets spent on shit that isn't part of their war chest. There's allegations against people all the time for taking their campaign money and using it elsewhere on themselves on stupid shit. So at the end of the day, man, everyone else is doing the exact same actions. And the reason why there's no investigation at all in Trump right now, even from different actors, there's other parties that can be doing it as well. Nobody's even investigating it. It's just hollow claims.
Well, who would be investigating it? Would be my question there. Like, because I it's a good line, but like, wouldn't it? It would be the federal government, so they're not going to investigate him while he's in charge, right?
I think a couple of the agencies do have authorization to look into the president when he's in office, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, you got to be careful with that, though. He can fire the head of those agencies.
Yeah, but yeah, that's true. I don't know. Yeah, maybe that argument isn't a good one. But yeah, at the end of the day, there hasn't been an investigation yet, so still just talking out your ass.
Yeah,
maybe there will be one.
I've got to be careful with arguments like that because I'm a unitary executive guy. So because I'm a unitary executive guy, a part of being a unitary executive guy is the understanding that like the federal government's not going to investigate the executive when he's in charge of being the executive, right? Like that. Okay, but the point is, we do not have evidence of a quid pro quo. What we have is a plane was given as a gift. We have people have bought his crypto coin. I think the crypto coin is actually the weakest example because it's the highest dollar value. But I think, like if you're buying a celebrity meme coin, in part, you're just like supporting someone. Like, I don't think you're expecting to get a favor from them. I think you're showing support. Like when people bought the Hawk Tua coin, I don't think they were expecting her to like help them. I think they were like getting in on a shitty meme, right? And the fucking coins always crash. So that kind of is what it is. Then and then there's in one debate I did with someone like I didn't know anything about it. They just said it. They said like he got a golf course. Like he got permission to expand a golf course and that was somehow corrupt. I wasn't sure. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one because that was just not one I know very much about.
I didn't know that one in particular, but
okay.
I don't know. It's just another silly. But like I'm looking at Trump coin right now. Trump coin started at 1.6. What is that? Is this in the millions? I don't know what this is. It's a big thing. And it's sitting at 1.3 right now. It's for the last year and a half. It's been. This isn't a big enough timeline. Hold on. When we get the fuck out of here. But yeah, Trump coin isn't the rug pull that everyone was saying is going to happen. Has not happened yet. It's still going down with time. It's just like it's a meme coin. Nobody was expecting their life to be changed. You get into them, you try to sell them real quick. It's just high value, really risky stocks trading, essentially. It's like treating the stock market like a quick, fast-paced game. That's all the coins are.
Well, I mean, yeah, the thing about meme coins is it's like if you invest in something and the first word of it is meme, there might be a little trouble with your investment strategy. For those who are just tuning in, Tyler and I are doing some debate prep, trying to work through the lines of argument about Trump corruption, because I'm going to be doing some debates coming up where I suspect people are going to try to ambush me with Trump is corrupt lines of argumentation. Tyler, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a second to catch up on supers, and then I want to get into the offensive lines that you were bringing up earlier. But Laid Dragon with the $20, thank you. What is the identifiable difference between corruption and the appearance of corruption? Almost all politicians get rich. How do you know when it's corrupt? I think this is the point I was raising earlier, which is like every politician somehow becomes many, many, many multiples richer after they leave office. And we all kind of know how this happens. Their donors take care of them after they leave office, and they knew it was going to happen. It's just like, as is often the case with Trump, he's a bit more brazen about things. So you can kind of see things happening more in real time. So I guess is the worst you could say. But yeah, it's not like the Obamas started some kind of like fantastic business, and that's why they have $70 million now, or that the Clintons are, started PayPal or built SpaceX, and that's why they have hundreds of millions of dollars. Their donors took care of them. $2 from Jefferson C. Post. Independent AG norm is just plausible deniability. Completely agree. Blasterbot with a 10. Thanks, buddy. Another track that you need to make sure to have a response for is that they may just bite the bullet on saying it is good when they do it and bad when you do it because they are definitionally good. That is the line Dev took. Dev was like, the Republicans are definitionally evil, therefore everything is it's a tactic. It's a shitty one, but Jefferson C. Post with the 2. Prove quid pro. I can't do Latin today. Prove quid pro quo for me. Defend Q bono for you. Well done, Jefferson. Appreciate you, buddy. Sam Josh with the 20. Thank you, Ryan, for the well wishes and always providing substantive commentary. Never stop doing what you do. You and chat keep me somewhat sane, and I thank you guys. Hey, Sam Josh, appreciate the 20 and hope you are doing well, my friend. I hope that everything is going well for you and that we get to see more of you in the future. My listening library, YouTube, with the $2. He sued the IRS and has the FBI in his pocket. He did sue the IRS. That settlement has been quashed. It is no longer valid, and he is the boss of the IRS. So saying the FBI. So saying he has the FBI in his pocket is a little bit funny. That's like saying Elon Musk has X in his pocket. Like, he is the boss of that thing. Taylor with the 5. Let's not forget the reason the plane wouldn't remain Air Force One is because the left refused to accept it as Air Force One or auxiliary to the 2 new jets on order. Is that true?
Like, I don't know enough about that.
I'm gonna have to look that up. If it is the case that it would have been the Air Force One plane and therefore would have been the property of the federal government, but the left rejected it, that would be a very good counter argument. I gotta look that up. And $5 from Jefferson C. Post. We are getting to the problem that the Roman Republic had, where maintaining a consul presidential immunity is all that prevents ruinous lawsuits. Yeah, I mean, at the risk of giving away debate strategy, if I get this debate with Loanerbox set up, and I hope I do, if Loanerbox wants to take the tact that we need to pack the court because the current court is so bad and they make so many bad decisions, I think it would be psychotic of him to pick a fight on the territory of who's better positioned to explain Supreme Court jurisprudence to the audience. I think I'm much better positioned to do that. So, I that would be delightful for me. But on the assumption that he does something different, he pivots back into corruption. Tyler, you had kind of like a piece I didn't get to, which was this: you were picking apart the types of corruption that you saw in the Biden administration and how you think that meets the standard that people apply to Trump. So can we slow that down and kind of walk through it factually? Because I don't feel like I'm particularly strong in this area, in part because it just was never an argument that I made.
When you were doing your super chats, I went ahead and looked up why Trump's meme coin wasn't considered a pump and dump. There was a restrictor on it based off of a law that was passed about these meme coins. The tokens were locked. 80% of the supply was locked, so it wasn't able to be sold. You couldn't just dump your fucking sales. You could only sell 20% of the time, and then over a schedule, you could slowly let go of the rest. So it wasn't actually like a pump and dump. They did it in a responsible way where you could buy in and then sell out. And, some people can make some money, but some people are going to lose some money. It's literally just gambling with stocks. That's all it generally is. But yeah, so my argument's two-pronged. It's that, obviously, one, the idea of corruption, which is taking things from other countries and doing things for them. That, to me, is the quid pro quo argument. There's no quid pro quo for anything. All these people, Saudis gave Trump all this money in his meme coin. What did the Saudis get? The accusation is that they were one of like the 60 countries that's now able to buy advanced AI chips. That's it. That's all they've gotten from us special. And they weren't even special. They were just on a list. So that's the one argument. The other argument of corruption is weaponizing different factions of government, features of government that are under your power and bringing them under your aegis and not fair government aegis. So that would be the use of the justice system in this argument. And that for Trump, even if you argue that Trump is telling his AG to go out and do X, Y, and Z, that's small game compared to what was done with the other two administrations. So Biden, there were people that were friendly with the Biden.
Can I pause you for a second? Your mic is cutting in and out a little bit.
Sorry, I'm trying to fuck with the shit because it used to echo. So I'm trying to mess with it to not pick up any background noises. If I get too far away from it, it does that. So the Biden administration was suppressing information. They were suppressing investigations. They were working against them. Not just the Biden administration, but a Democrat-friendly actor inside the DOJ named Leslie Wolf. She testified. She never denied a single thing that she did. She just said that was part of, I just thought it was bad optics, was her excuse. She was never charged with anything, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, the Biden administration, Biden himself called the CIA to suppress information about his son that was being discussed amongst Ukrainians. He interfered in the election with the Hunter Biden or with the Russiagate stuff as well. The Democratic Party, the Hillary campaign were using the FBI, assets inside the FBI that agreed with them and wanted them to win politically, and unknowingly lying to other people in order to push something that was completely fabricated. They weaponized the FBI, the CIA, the intel departments against Trump in a way that Trump has never even fathomed to weaponize against his opposition. So once you start digging into those two things and see what they actually did, Trump, the weaponization of the DOJ and the apparatuses of the executive agencies is significantly worse against Trump than for him.
Okay, so let's take that like piece by piece. So what exactly did Leslie Wolf do that you think is evidence of corruption?
Finally, I got to go to the document. Where is it? All right, Leslie Wolf. She was the individual. She is the was the assistant U.S. attorney out of Delaware, working under David Weiss, who was the head investigator into Hunter Biden's tax issues. So there was 5 years of tax issues they were looking into, 2 of which were when Hunter Biden or Joe Biden was the vice president, and those were a lot to do with Burisma and those things. No charges were ever filed. David Weiss let him fall off. He gave contradictory answers. Either way, it doesn't matter. A lot of this had to do with information that came out during the whistleblower hearings. So first, there was a text message, a WhatsApp message, where Hunter Biden said, I'm sitting here with my father. And he made a threat, blah, blah, blah. All the rest of that's irrelevant. But he said, I'm sitting here with my father. The IRS wanted to follow up on GPS location to see where Joe Biden was when that text message was sent, to verify if it was true, if there was any corroboration. She individually stepped in and said, do not look into Hunter or into Joe Biden. Stop this. Would not let them move further with that path. There were checks coming in from foreign nationals from different countries where Hunter Biden was doing his business of influence peddling. These checks were going to different members of Joe Biden's family. Several of those members, the IRS was just not flat out allowed to interview because of Leslie Wolf, and the ones that they were allowed to interview, they weren't allowed to ask certain questions about the big guy, about dad, about Joe Biden, anything linking to the president. Hunter Biden was living in a guest house on his dad's property. They wanted to raid the house because they know he'd done multiple things, FARA violations, potential money laundering, violations of the Mann Act, different things like that. They weren't allowed to raid their house. Leslie Wolf, again, was the individual that stepped in and said, bad optics, do not raid Hunter Biden's house because he's the son of Joe Biden. So their entire investigation was pretty much stonewalled by this woman. There's a couple other smaller things she did. The next hearing, they brought in the expert witnesses, somebody that literally had the same job as her. The IRS, she was an assistant USDA, said almost all of her actions were completely off board, something that you would not do if it were her in that position. So,
okay, so we have this kind of like, all right, so we have this pressure to not investigate or to not do things that might link Hunter's conduct to Joe. And that's important because the argument, and I'm trying to make sure I put these pieces into the right place. The argument that is typically made is that someone will say like, well, yeah, Hunter Biden did promise that he was influence peddling, but in fact, he wasn't. Like Joe Biden wasn't there, and he was just talking shit. But then it seems like what you're saying is because that investigation never in fact happened. So saying that like he wasn't doing it is a little bit, in the same breath, you're going to tell me that we can't know whether Trump did anything because that investigation hasn't happened yet, but the investigation into Hunter never happened either, is kind of the point that you seem to be making.
Yes, and then also I forgot the most egregious one. I wanted to end with it. I just kind of left it out. When the U.S. Attorney Wolf tipped off Hunter Biden's lawyers that the IRS was about to raid a storage unit of Hunter Biden's, giving him time to go in there and clean up any potentially incriminating evidence. She warned Hunter Biden, who was under IRS investigation, that he was about to be raided like a day beforehand. So,
okay, and you can. By the way, it says you have a doc. Any chance you could share this doc with me down the road?
Yeah, it's the same one I sent you.
Oh, it's the same one you sent me. Okay, cool.
I just beefed it up a bit, and I got all the citations in there. I got quotes from the gentlemen that were testifying. That was the big one. Was again, they warned Hunter Biden's lawyer. It was Ziegler testified that U.S. Attorney Wolf and the DOJ Attorney Mark Daley tipped off Biden's legal team that investigators had discovered a storage unit, giving them an opportunity to remove potentially incriminating evidence before the search warrant could be executed. So they're like tipping off Hunter Biden so that he can get away with crimes, because this is somebody that was like affiliated. Her and her husband are big members of the Democratic Party, massive donators, do all sorts of campaign shit. They're big Democrat thumpers. She went out of her way to protect Hunter Biden as a member of the DOJ, stopping an investigation into him. So anyone that says there was a thorough investigation and nothing found is just ignoring the fact that the entire thing was stonewalled. We don't know if there was anything linking Biden because they weren't allowed to look.
Okay. And then Biden took the unusual step of giving open-ended pardons ultimately. So like not only was Hunter pardoned for like specified crimes, he was pardoned for blanket crimes. So even if there really would be no way to investigate at this point, like what investigate into what, it's now all he's now immune to all of these things.
Well, they could bring him in and have him testify. He no longer can plead the fifth. They have him testify under oath. He lies about something. They get him for perjury because it doesn't prevent new crimes. That's the only potential thing you can do to him right now. But yeah, he had credible accusations of violating the Mann Act because we know he flew his prostitute over state lines from multiple states to bring her to his Owasco PC office in Washington, D.C. We know that he has open FARA violations he could have been charged with. We know, like, Devin Archer flat out admitted in a hearing, like, we were out there selling the influence of Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was being used essentially as the figurehead of what we were selling. Now, Joe Biden never gave them anything, is what he said. But we were out there basically committing fraud. We were lying to people to steal money and launder it into the United States. Okay, so I think that's the case right there.
Yeah, and again, to back up and give people the context, the reason all of this matters is, at least to me, for the sake of these arguments, and debate prep, is not because we're trying to say that like Hunter Biden's corruption was some kind of like absolute jaw-dropping, world-ending conspiracy. That's not the point, though. That would be a fun point to make in a debate, but I don't think understand that to be the point. The point more is that if you are going to say that all of this smoke about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, but there's no fire, like you see the smoke, but you're unwilling to connect the dots. Okay, but then when you go to Trump and you say, but crypto coin, but golf course, but plane, and they say, well, where's the quid pro quo? And you say, well, we can't prove it, but where there's smoke, there's fire. That's the point, right? Where it's like, if we're going to apply that standard, then we need to apply that standard across the board, not just in the context of Trump. So the idea of the argument is to try to reveal that the double standard that's being used in these areas. At least that's how I understand it. You're muted.
You're impeaching the credibility of the other debater. That's basically what you're doing. Is just showing that their standard is so out of whack because they have TDS. Is the long and the short of it. And you could even, if you really wanted to meme on them hard, you could say they're just like owlishness in chat. You're just obsessed with John Jr.'s cock. That's all this is. And like, you know, it's a fun little thing to throw back at them.
Yeah, I will say, Tyler, I hope you're having fun because trollishness is attention seeking. So, you know, she will never see the light of reason of your arguments because the attention is the point. So
she gets a bad rap because it's only text and she's kind of mean in text. I debated her on the DMZ a few weeks back. Very nice, actually pretty decent at debate as well for being a leftist cringer.
Well, there you go, Alchinus. That's the nicest thing that's ever been said about you on the stream. So, so you should take that to the bank, Alchinus. Clip that. You got Tyler's support. Okay. So we have this Leslie Wolf bit. We have the Hunter Biden bit. Then we have the pardon bit. There's always the meme about like, oh, it's weird that Hunter's having money problems right now. Is people stop buying his paintings for $500,000? That's so weird. Why do you think they stopped buying his paintings? When Joe Biden was in office, he couldn't keep them in stock. People were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for his paintings. And now, no paintings. Weird.
Yeah, but once you start to get into that argument, they're just going to argue, oh, it's an argument of scale. And Trump's just doing it more, so it's worse because he's doing it more. And that's all you're going to get. It's the same shitty argument about like election denial where Democrats like denied elections for 20 years, set the stage for it, spent Trump's entire term denying that he was the legitimate president. Like YouGov polls showing that like they thought Russians hacked the voting machines and inserted millions of votes and shit like that. The entire fucking up until 2020. And then Trump says, I think this election was rigged. And suddenly like voter fraud and saying elections were rigged is like the biggest sin in the United States. It's silly.
Yeah. Okay. So we have this Biden stuff, the Wolf stuff, the Hunter Biden stuff, but you also raised some Obama examples. And it's funny because I do co-host a show with Rob Noor, but this is not an area where I'm particularly well-versed, though I would say of all the topics in all the world, this is probably Rob's favorite topic. But if you were going to give a summary of like, what do you think is the most defensible Obama examples to bring up? What would they be?
Well, Rob did that debate with Destiny on this maybe like 6 months ago or a year ago when it came out, and that was when he got blacklisted like the second time, I think, out of the 20 times you guys have been blacklisted together. But I think he did a fantastic.
Hold on, you said the magic words. So with that, we have an interlude.
When we talk about like,
am I blacklisted or are you stalking me? What's going on here, brother?
I'm stalking you and you're blacklisted.
So yes, I am. He is stalking me, and I am blacklisted. That is the current state.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That wife left me energy, bro, that he's been doing for the last few months is just like it makes my skin crawl. Fuck, I forgot what I was talking about. Something about when you guys got. Oh no, yeah, Rob did the debate with Destiny. I thought he did a fantastic job laying it all out. I just would have hammered home more that the guy that was the whistleblower was the guy that wrote the 2016 Intel report. So it's basically the whole Russiagate thing, how that dossier moved its way around the federal government after the Clinton administration paid Russian officials to fill it with misinformation. So Peter Strzok brought it in through the FISA warrants. I want to say it was, what the fuck was his name? I got it written down somewhere. It was the head of the CIA under Obama. What the fuck was it? Clapper? No.
I forgot his name.
I got it written down. Brennan. It was John Brennan. That's his name.
Mm-hmm.
And former DNI James Clapper. I want to say that they were the ones that acknowledged that it had nothing actually material in it, that there was no actual proof that Russia was going out of their way to help Trump in the 2016 elections. The print up of the report came to Obama. We know Obama was dissatisfied with it. We don't have anything saying Obama said, get me a new report. But a new report was commissioned, and a lot of people were cut out of it. A lot of people were lied to about the contents on it to get them to sign off on it. And several people were threatened, had their jobs threatened if they didn't get on board with the contents of this new report that did say that Trump was being helped. And it came from the dossier was part of it. Dossier also, I think Comey was the one that put the dossier into the presidential briefing, which allowed, BuzzFeed to legitimately then turn around and print it in the newspaper. That wasn't probably as coordinated as it comes off in this chain of events, but that is how it happened, is Comey's slipped it into the presidential briefing. So you have 4 actors that all didn't want Trump to win, all taking this piece of Oppo research they knew was Oppo research that was lying about, saying it wasn't Oppo research, and inserted it into different parts of our intelligence and lawmaking apparatus, law enforcing apparatus, in order to go against Trump.
Yeah, and then this led to them getting FISA warrants on Carter Page. And I think everyone has to admit at this point that those FISA warrants were improperly done and based on bad information. And I don't think anyone defends those warrants at this point. I
think Pisco still would.
Okay,
he defends Papadopoulos still, but Papadopoulos was different.
I mean, it's just with Pisco, it's like at this point, like it's just mere utterances. Like, he can defend anything because words have no meaning anymore. Like he's gone so far down the kind of like psycho left track at the same time that he's gone down like the never go full Philbro track, and the result has led to it's a terrible place to be, where you're so reliant on the kind of like philosophy 101 content that you become impossible to speak to, because you'll be like, well, that's obviously illegal, and be like, well, I don't use the word illegal, I'm saying schmalegal, and schmalegal has a different meaning than illegal, right? It's just fucking nonsense. So whatever, fuck them. But if I remember correctly, Carter Page was not actually in the Trump campaign at that time. Is that right?
He was working with them, but he was just a volunteer. He was close enough. He had ties within the campaign, even with the 2-hop rule that allowed him to be looked into. That generally means they could look at multiple members of the Trump administration. They also had the Papadopoulos indictment. That was Peter Strzok. Papadopoulos was drunk at a bar in Australia. I guess he was talking about how he was trying to contact somebody in Russia for the campaign. Somebody overheard him, reported it to the FBI. Peter Strzok just heard the rumor. He never even interviewed the guy, just immediately opens an investigation. He had looked up reports from a shared database from all different intelligence agencies. There was zero proof that there was coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia, and he still opened a full-scale investigation. That's something that Horowitz and Durham both dinged as improper, and again, something Pisco to this day still defends.
Okay, all right. So the idea is we lay out these examples, and I think the Obama example, the important bit of the Obama example isn't money, because there's no allegation that he was taking money. And I don't even think of the Biden example, it's the money that Hunter was taking, though I think there is good evidence that Hunter was taking money. It's the use of government power in response to a personal goal, right? That seems to be what you're driving at. That, like the Biden administration was willing to quash intelligence reports that made Biden look bad. The Obama administration was willing to use government apparatus to spy on people that were within 2 hops of the Trump campaign, and therefore getting information on the Trump campaign. Is that the thrust of it?
Yeah, and I mean, based off of just the general definition of corruption, monetary gain doesn't have to be the only sort of gain. You could even bring in the Biden administration bullying social media companies to suppress information that went against things their administration was saying, as well as a form of corruption. But it's rather abstract and weak, I feel like. But yeah, monetary corruption-wise is what they're going to try to nail corruption to. You say, no, look at these motherfuckers weaponizing this, and you don't actually have a quid pro quo for any monetary gains that Trump's made. So it's kind of, I don't know, all they got.
Yeah, because I think that there's a if we go back to the money point, right? Where it's like, why is it that every president becomes astronomically wealthy when they leave office? And the answer is they get paid by their donors to do speeches. And like we all know that this is going to happen. The large problem to Trump is that, like, I guess he has the crypto coin going right now. So in some senses, it's just a populist version of that. Like, if your donors are populists, they're going to be donating through like buying your crypto or buying your merch instead of hosting you at like a Wall Street speech, or some kind of event. And then with the use of government power, I can't think of anything like it really does seem like it's going to come down to the use of the DOJ against people like Comey, right? Like that he's been very clear that he would like to be able to tell the AG and different attorneys general who to prosecute in some instances. And he has been very clear in that regard. I don't think, if we're going to be like transparent, I don't think there's going to be as clear an example of like Obama or Biden giving a direction to somebody as that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, Trump probably loses in that. You could argue hypothetically, hey, maybe he's just, doing what he does. He's Donnie from Queens. As soon as he signs on to social media, he's no longer President Trump. He just riffs like he's some guy from New York that wants to talk on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he's just giving his takes. You could make that argument, or you could make the argument, hey, maybe some of the people that he's pointing out actually did wrongdoing. John Bolton just pled guilty to his charge, and he has to pay $2 million.
Yeah, and well, this is actually. Let me try something out and see how this grabs you, like with regards to the DOJ stuff. No one's saying it wasn't a norm violation for Trump to like give that kind of transparent direction to the DOJ, but not all norm violations are bad. There's lots of norms that I think are good and they should stick around, but some norms are actually a problem. Like, one norm that we had prior to Trump is that politicians were going to pretend to be these baby-faced angels and never speak like real people in front of us. That norm got broken, and now politicians do speak like real people in front of us. And I think it's actually better that norm got broken. That was a bad norm. It's better that we have politicians who are being more transparent and more honest in what they think and feel around us. Similarly, I don't think the norm that we pretend that the president doesn't have, some kind of control or direction over his subordinates that he can fire at any time for any reason at the DOJ is ridiculous. Like, the idea that he couldn't pick up the phone and call the attorney general and tell him what to do when he is this guy's boss. He is that person's boss. He can fire this guy. He supervises him. He has constitutional authority over him. The idea that we were pretending that this never happened isn't a good norm, because it made it look like the president wasn't accountable for what the DOJ was doing. But the president is accountable for what the DOJ is doing. And if you don't like what the DOJ is doing, then you should vote for the other guy in the next election. That's how politics works. How does that argument grab you?
Well, I mean, that's 100% true. I think it's too logical for a leftist to comprehend. A lot of what you're arguing here, like, you told the truth about what Elvin Bragg's actual upcharge meant in the New York case. I've made that argument 10, 20 times to people. Not a single person even believes it when I bring up the New York law and explain it to them. When I bring up the Andy McCarthy article about it and explain it to them. So I think you're offering a better counter argument that you're going to be met with. You talk to Dev, the dude was like panicking, switching subjects, engaging in character attacks, saying that your virtue signaling is illegitimate. Stop doing that. Stop saying it's tyranny. It's not tyranny. Like, that's the job of the debater, to frame it that way. Of course, he's got to frame it his way, but he's appalled with the fact that you don't agree with his interpretation. That's the biggest thing to them. They're insulted that you don't agree with them, and now they have to attack you and beat you down. So,
yeah, I've never watched Loner Box debate. Have you seen any of his stuff? Maybe I should go find some of his debates and watch them.
I've engaged with him a couple of times, mostly on Whick streams when I still went on those. He can be a massively smarmy cunt. He's actually decent. Like, he's not stupid. He's not stupid. He'll be able to throw some shit out there. He's probably smarter. Out of all the Destiny people you've argued, he's probably smarter than the rest of the ones you've engaged with so far. Like, Josiah is low-hanging fruit. Pisco really seems like if he settled the fuck down and became a normal human being, he would really be super intelligent. It's just he's so poisoned on his politics that like it blocks his brain. But I think he's actually capable. But Lonerbox, he's got some wits about him. He's not going to be a pushover.
Okay, that's good to know. I'll go watch some of stuff. I've always said like, I do like to give the devil his due, and I think Pisco is, of the kind of like Destiny orbiters, the strongest debater. I actually find it tougher to. I find personally Pisco to be harder to debate than Destiny. Destiny, like, I don't know. Maybe it's because he keeps trying to talk to me about subjects where I'm knowledgeable. He does so much theatrics and so little substance. It's kind of like it is a little bit. It's a little bit of a joke at this point. Pisco at least knows the cases that he's talking about. Like if you're going to get into a legal area, he knows the law. So like I in that sense, he's I find debates with him more challenging than debates with Destiny. Though I do think he's got to get off this fucking Philbro arc. Like it reminds me of like, you know, that meme of like the idiot and the midwit and the high IQ guy in like the fucking Sith robe. And like, that's what Pisco's doing right now, where he's doing this kind of like midwit philosophy bro thing, and it's making him much less effective. So hopefully he gets off that train sooner or later. Okay. So Lonerbox is a pretty smart guy. He, like, assuming this debate gets set up, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but I'm hoping it will. What are the other, like, if they're not going to do corruption, what are the things that they find? Because maybe I'm too deep into like this Trump echo chamber, right? Like, what are the things they find so objectionable about him? Because the other day I almost found myself saying, like, what is it that he's done that they find so horrifying? And I was like, I was like having a harder time with that, but maybe that's because like I don't find immigration enforcement horrifying.
Well, that comes from the Omni Clause mythos. Like, they've already found him horrifying. They find him horrifying every day. And even if it's like the best day of Trump's presidency, they're going to take a narrative, they're going to spin it into something bad, they're going to pump it into the daily rage cycle, and there's going to be 1,000 fucking posts about it. There's just, at this point, like, any small, big thing is just another reason to hate Trump. I don't think this is this is the motivating factor behind their animus. I think that they think this is like anything Trump does is excused. He's got presidential immunity. The corrupt Supreme Court is on his side. He controls the Senate still, the House as well. Like, there's nothing objectionable we can do to fight against him. And obviously we're right and he's wrong. The American voters are obviously stupid because they picked the wrong side. So we need new mechanisms to battle. You're never going to break through that elite smarminess of people that could just never say, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one. Maybe the reason why the game show host that fucking says belligerent things all the time won is because we're worse. It's those people you're running into. There's no self-reflection.
But I saw in the little bit of Lonerbox's content I watched, like he does seem to call Trump fascist or fasci, if there's some distinction there. But like, at the risk of opening the can of worms of fascist, which is probably the least well-defined term in our political discourse, like, what are the things that they are really concerned about Trump doing? Like, I know for Whick, it was like ICE enforcement. That was the thing that he was like up in arms about. There was the National Guard for a bit. There was when they tried to deport that girl for writing that like op-ed, stuff like this. Like, but what do you think of the high water marks of like Trump is a fascist? What are the big examples there?
Well, it's not. I mean, those are just bolstering that girl that like for every one girl that didn't get deported based on the 1952 immigration clause of the INA, you got the Khalils that are getting deported because they committed fraud and were pushing for terrorist groups that decapitate Jewish people. So, I mean, there are some bad examples of it, but yeah, that's generally, he's attacking our free speech. He's sicking the military on us in the streets because all we want to do is protect the illegals and keep them here. And all these, you've heard all these arguments, you know, and they just think he's egregious in every way. It's Trump doesn't want illegal immigrants in the country, and he wants to do merit-based immigration. So obviously that means he hates all immigrants and is a racist and a fascist as a result. The fascism argument isn't hard to understand. Like Circa and Andrew Wilson debated it. Circa did a fantastic job at laying it out. Andrew's just like, you know what, I completely agree. You did a very good job at the definition there. It's they have an idea of fascism that's not the actual thing that Gentile thought up, that was a nationalized syndicalism for Italy. And it's this concept of like 11 different points that if you can vaguely interpret the actions of somebody to fit 7 or 8 of those points, that's enough to deem him a fascist. And it's like these points are somewhat vague, and then it's up to your interpretation of them. You can you can take like the last 10 U.S. presidents and line them up with these points and probably match like 8 of them to the president, the way they're doing it, just like selecting an anecdote and saying, well, that anecdote fits it close enough, so he's a fascist. It's just silly bullshit. And if somebody's already going that far, what you did to Dev was just good enough. So you think he's a fascist? You think it's tyranny? At what point should we resist tyranny? And what are your limiting principles? And that exposes people so much more. Like, it might seem like, you know, you're just pulling the same cards out of your deck, but showing how fucking crazy they are is the point, and it works so well. Why do a different tactic?
Yeah, and I think the new one that's interesting there is I covered it recently, and spoiler alert on Law and Order, Rob and I are going to go fucking nuts tomorrow night. So if you want to see some peak Law and Order, I think tomorrow might be our best show of all time, because I don't know if you read the Antifa indictment, but holy shit. Like, because, you know, this is the thing that J.D. Vance was saying on Bill Maher, which I think is a very good point, which is if you're going to enforce the law, any law, it could be immigration law, but any law, and there are organized cells of people who are engaging in quasi-military actions to impede law enforcement, then there are going to be bad videos of use of force and law enforcement dealing with like these situations. And like, there are going to be moments that are going to be like on the news and are going to be making people outraged. And the only way to avoid that at that point is just to not enforce the law and let the like Antifa anarchists win. Because, you know, like, you can't avoid the bad clip, you know, like in that scenario, you just can't. So what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to not enforce the law because there are communists marching in the streets with fucking shields and putting up, you know, Czech hedgehogs and impeding law enforcement, tracking cars, creating databases, stalking law enforcement officers, and now, you know, shooting them and getting convicted and getting 100-year sentences? Is this like, are we supposed to say that because all these people are doing all this illegal obstruction of law enforcement, that law enforcement is not allowed to then enforce the law, and that we should compromise with the, you know, fucking terrorists who are, you know, stalking law enforcement officers? Like, is that the point you're making? I think it is a little bit crazy.
You're right, but at the end of the day, I think that people are too focused on the news cycle of right now. Are these things that people are talking about going to last even a week in the news cycle, a month of the news cycle, up to the midterms in the news cycle? You know how many times that pretty and good are mentioned on X now? Almost never. It's already like, we're already far past that. Trump's immigration, he went from 41 back up to 46 because Tom Homan took all that shit underground. I feel like people are more concerned with the short term. Let them go out and riot. Let the police videos come out of police, you know, punching them around a little bit. Let that tank for a couple of weeks. And then we get something like today where you got your Antifa, indictment. I was just looking at the Antifa trial that just wrapped up of the people that attacked the ICE facility and shot the cop in the neck. So like, there's just so much Antifa violence to go around. So much, like, you saw like Black Lives Matter when it first incepted as a movement, and it was mostly peaceful protesting and blah, blah, blah. And that narrative was still being bought. We hadn't seen 700 buildings damaged in Minneapolis yet. the approval was like 70% for this movement. Now it's in the 30s. Like it just a lie can lace up its boots and get around the world before the truth laces up its boots. And that's the same thing we see with like Palestine and Israel. It takes, like Iran gets on social media, says some dumb shit, and then it takes like 2 months for an Israeli investigation to go ahead and debunk that dumb thing. Mm-hmm. It's the same idea here. We're just looking at the short term. I think that the midterms is going to be when a lot of this information starts to coalesce, especially once Democrats start coming out and being crazy. Look at those 3 people that just won in New York. When those people start coming out and talking, it's going to remind right-wing voters that are mad about things or maybe down in the economy that the other side is awful. It's just going to cut. Oh, yeah, that's why we voted for Trump again. This war sucks, but hey, fuck those people.
Yeah, because there's a craziness to this whole thing where I feel like even post-indictment, where there's very detailed conspiracy that was laid out of these entities, and I covered it. The video's up, so you can go watch it if you haven't seen it. But they have the signal chat. They obviously have a cooperating witness or two. Like it's very, very clear that there was a conspiracy to stalk and impede federal law enforcement. And then you had like the trial where we're talking about like stalking and killing law enforcement officers, which is about remember when people were talking about like the definition of insurrection for like a fucking year, 5 years, whatever the fuck it was. Well, like stalking and killing law enforcement officers is way worse in terms of level of violence than anything that we've been talking about in like the J6 context. Like this is crazy stuff. So, but I don't think this stuff gets across their radar screens. Like I think that if you tell them that like, oh, like there's like very good credible evidence against these Antifa at this point, they're going to say like, oh no, that's just like that's a right-wing conspiracy. That's make believe.
Some people are just so far in the tank. There's people on the right wing. If you tell them like, look, there's still no credible evidence that 2020 was won by Trump, that Biden lost it and cheated, they say the same thing. Like there's just people so far in the tank for their partisan side. That's what I'm saying. Like if Pisco were able to remove himself from that tank, I think he'd be a fantastic at like internet debate. You get caught up in it, you start playing for your team, and then suddenly you find yourself lying for your team and having this massive double standard. Hold on one moment.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so okay. I think the Antifa stuff is going to be really, really useful. And then if there's a way to let's be just honest about like where my strengths are in terms of debating. Like if I could get one of these debates to become a debate about the Trump immunity decision, that's fucking fantastic for me. That's already a home run. Like, just like I wouldn't want to debate Rob about like the Obama FISA stuff because he's just so deep in the weeds on it and knows more than me. Like I don't think there's a lot of people on the internet who are going to want to debate me on presidential immunity. That's just it's just an area where I have a lot of expertise.
That's one of their important stepping stones to get to the point where you need to pack the courts, because obviously the courts are in the tank for Trump. Look at that immunity ruling. We can't even arrest the guy.
Oh, so maybe that. Do you think I could? Do you think I could bait that hook?
Absolutely.
If I said to you, like, look, packing the courts, which is not what Mitch McConnell did. He denied advice and consent, and we can talk about that. But actually packing the courts is incredibly dangerous because it invites people to rewrite the Constitution through activist judges, and basically we won't even have the rule of law anymore. What could you possibly say that would justify a violation of that sort? How on earth could you possibly think that risking the concept of rule of law itself is a good risk to take? Why would you roll those dice? Do you think that would bait them into going into the immunity direction?
Maybe. I would go more the route of saying like, look, Trump term 1, the guardrails held. The Supreme Court voted against him. The Congress came out against him, even Republicans at certain times. I don't see any reasons why those same guardrails and why our checks and balances will hold this time as well. And that will lead him to say, well, our guardrail is corrupted. You have to say why, and then blah, 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 and you go down that path. You have to make him get on the conversation that the court needs to be packed because the court we currently have is going to somehow illegitimately rule in favor of Trump. Why do we need to even pack the court? What is what is wrong with the court in order to make it like require 3 Democrats to be on it? And then they're going to say that it's corrupt, and this is why the immunity ruling, and probably a couple other. I've talked to a couple people; they have their own niche arguments for it, but the immunity ruling is the factor that carries over for every single one of them as to why the court can't be trusted.
Yeah, because the immunity ruling is a really interesting one. This is no longer kind of like debate prep, but it's more just like a meta noticing on my point. One of the things I've learned is that the left does not actually favor separation of powers. What they favor the rule of specific experts, right? So, like the immunity decision is a separation of powers decision. It's saying that Congress and the courts lack the power to do something. But when they think of separation of powers, they mean checks and balances. They don't mean actual separation of powers. Because if you actually separate powers, then in some areas, a branch of government is supreme to the other branches of government. But what they seem to want, and what Justice Jackson has articulated a few times now, is a court that is maximally powerful and can oversee every branch of government in everything that it does, but a different court. Like they want the court to be maximally powerful, but they want it to do different things, which is like a kind of a wildly partisan take, right? Because if you wanted a court that was maximally powerful, how could you possibly complain that the court is doing anything now? Like what? You're muted.
Yeah, I did the double mute again. I was going to argue against you and like correct you by saying that's not the left. It's more the people that are in the tank for the party. But at the end of the day, it is kind of the entire party trying to tear down these pillars to allow like minority protections and checks and balances to go away. It's like they're trying to get the filibuster is one that they push the entire time. Trump's trying to get rid of it as well right now, but it just doesn't feel authentic. The way that they're doing it, it sounds like they're just trying to signal to like the Rob Noirs, look, we're trying, but we just don't have the fucking votes. They literally just don't have the fucking votes to do it. So I think they're virtue signaling on that. But like I see Democrats as trying to like get rid of X, Y, and Z things in their way right now in a way where it's just too ingrained in the party. They make Trump look moderate. And it's wild to me that somebody like Dev would come to the conclusions that he does. But yeah, we are just kind of noticing at this point, like the way that they go. And I think you could easily trap them in the argument of that particular ruling.
Well, so maybe that's the way to do it. You just say like, well, look, if you guys think that Trump is doing all these horrible things, you know, eventually you guys are going to win an election. Why do you need to pack the courts? Just prosecute them. Now that's a little bit like, maybe that's too obvious bait, right? But like, because, you know, the answer is going to have to be, well, we can't prosecute him.
Yeah, well, you could say if he didn't do anything in his official capacity, then you could just prosecute him. That's when, if anybody that disagrees with you on that ruling will probably take that bait. I think so. And then you just get into that. Like the entire premise of having to pack the court is the court in its current manifestation cannot properly judge and punish Trump. And again, it hinges on mostly that immunity ruling, not fully. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you could easily force them into that. I'm sure. Let's test it with is owlishness still in here? She's our residential lefty. Does that trigger you, owlishness?
Well,
if so,
trollishness is triggered by everything that I say and do. So I'm sure this will trigger her. But I try not to judge an argument by trollishness's reaction because her reactions are primarily her everything she says and does is basically a cry for attention. So, you know, you got to put it in that context. Okay. So at the end of the day, and if there are people And I would like to open this up to Collins eventually. By the way, you and Tyler, you're welcome to stay or not for Collins. Totally at your preference. But I'm trying to. I guess maybe I've just I'm trying to figure out if I got too deep in the right and I'm just not sensitive to what the concerns are at this point. But when I look at the Trump administration, what I see is a bunch of the concerns of the left being disproven over time, right? Like he's going to use the National Guard. It's like, well, he did until the court told him not to, and then he stopped. It's like he's going to ignore the courts. It's like, well, when exactly did he ignore the courts? Like, what are we talking about here? He's enforcing the law. That's true. He has enforced the law. Maybe they think that he should have been so rough about the way he enforces the law. He is trying to terminate TPS. He's trying to make a different interpretation of birthright citizenship. But I'm not sure what is so wrong about these things. So anyway, Tyler, if you have a chat or have a reaction to what is it about Trump term 2 that makes people so angry? Like, what is it about it that is so bad that makes him so ontologically evil? That would be helpful for me because I'm actually struggling to see it at this point.
The brazenness of it. He was always brazen before, though. I don't see much of a difference either. He's doing a bit. His dick's swinging a little bit lower this time. Mm-hmm. I would say he's probably doing things he wouldn't have done in term 1. The Venezuela thing for sure, and the Iran war. I just don't see those as. He didn't have the balls to do that in term 1. I don't think he had the balls to crash the economy with a trade war in term 1, just so he could get some rewriting on trade deals, small rewrites in a lot of ways. So I think he's taken bigger bites out of the apple and moving at a faster pace now. And I think the fact that they just can't do anything about it is what's pissing them off so much.
Yeah, and the tariffs thing is a great example because a few times when I was debating court packing, I think people made this transparently bad faith argument where they're like, well, the right isn't packing the court, not because they don't want to, but because there's no need for them to do it. Right. It has diminishing returns. And it's like, well, hold on. The court just struck Trump's signature economic agenda as illegal. They struck down his tariffs. You don't think that it would be helpful for Trump to pack the court and be allowed to tariff? Like, you don't think that would be a useful thing for him to do, or that he couldn't accomplish that through court packing? Like, you don't think that if he put, and because you don't have to court pack in 2 or 4, you could court pack in 100. You don't think Justice Lindell and Justice Alex Jones are going to vote in favor of tariffs? I'm saying, you could. The problem with the court packing issue for me is that there's no limiting principle at all. If you're allowed to court pack in this way, you can just there's the laws and the Constitution no longer are any check on you whatsoever. It's complete mob rule at that point because you can just say I appointed 500 justices and guess what? They said it was legal. Weird. Turns out, did any of them go to law school? No. Is one of them my maid? Yeah. But what's unconstitutional about that? Nothing. There's nothing unconstitutional about that. It's like the fucking it's when they blew up the Death Star, weird analogy making the Constitution the Death Star, but it's that. It's the fucking hatch on the Constitution, and if you open and fire a missile down this hatch, the whole fucking thing blows up.
So the analogy I would say for your particular situation is you're a guy that works at a power plant, and a bunch of people come. They start fighting with all your power plant buddies and employees, and you're standing there hey, don't tear this facility apart and use it for weapons because we need it to power the entire city, and you people don't realize what you're actually doing. And at the end of the day, again, it just keeps boiling down to this for me. It's 2 teams ignoring the bad on their side and then hyper-focusing on anything they could potentially use against the other side. Because Trump, I guess you could argue he did ignore what the courts ruled on that Twitter sale thing because he extended the 90 days twice, but it's already sold, water under the bridge, nobody cared. But Judge Boasberg was flat out ignoring like the appeals court. He ignored a SCOTUS ruling. He got a writ of mandamus. He got punished. He got two writs. I only heard of one. All right. So yeah, fucking A. Bro, like just completely ignored everybody and nobody seemed to give a shit at all. In fact, he was getting cheered on. They didn't make Fauci candles or anything, but he was cheered on as like a hero.
Yeah. And there is a little bit of like one of the things that we're starting to see is like, when people on the right were saying about like the long march through the institutions and kind of like, the people, these kind of like postmodernists, cultural Marxists, whatever you want to call them, taking over. Now we actually can demonstrate some of these breadcrumbs where you can point to like district court judges who just write insane things in order to find ways to rule against Trump. Like, I mean, I know like the TPS case just is like in the news, so it's an interesting one. I mean, like, I know you're not a lawyer, but like the fucking law says there is no judicial review. There is no judicial review of the secretary's decision. This is not a complicated concept, right? Like, I mean, like you can't, like, how hard could it be to figure out what that means? You're double muted again, buddy.
Damn it. So their actual lawsuit, what they allege is that Trump has an anti-immigration racist policy. Like they took the internet meme, they took the Democrat talking point and they try to apply it as a legal standard because he's specifically against illegal immigrants and certain types of merit-based illegal immigrants, that this is actually a malicious racist policy and he shouldn't be allowed to do it. I was watching what the fuck is that guy I tried to hook you up with? His name Andrew Branca was covering.
Yeah. He and I have been DMing a little bit. I have not been able to find like a thing for us to collaborate on, but I definitely want to do some shit with Branca. Though, holy shit, that dude's spicy on X. I had no idea how spicy that dude got. But by the way, zombies, thanks for this. And if you haven't liked the channel yet, what the fuck are you doing? Like the channel, subscribe, like the stream, go to Tyler's channel, like his channel, subscribe to his channel. What the fuck are you doing if you haven't done that yet? Follow the good example of people who are supporting the stream. And while I'm saying that, Tyler, if you don't mind, maybe we can respond to some supers. Radcon Hazard with the 5. How many gifts over the years has the U.S. given to other world leaders' countries? I feel like it's fairly normal back and forth. Have you looked into that, Tyler? Like, do we give gifts to other countries?
I think that our world leaders have given personal gifts to other world leaders and things like that. Like, it's I don't know the exact numbers because the only reason I'd prep for that is because someone's going to try to hit me with it. It's an argument of scale, and usually you can dispel that by if it's 1 is just as bad as 10. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah,
I'll have to look into that. I'm not sure. I mean, I would assume we give something, but I mean, there's got to be some kind of like ceremonial gift. Taylor with the 5. Definitely look into it, but remember the disposition of the plane to the Prez Library was a compromise. That is worth looking into. If it was supposed to be like an Air Force One plane and it was a compromise to give it to the library, that's a very good talking point. If true, I'm going to need to research that. Sam Josh with the 2. Thank you, buddy. Attacking character is an ad hom. Tu quo que. I'm not sure what that was in reference to, but I appreciate the support, buddy. I should have a Destiny rent-free sticker. Maybe he's realizing that calling into my shows and making a fool out of himself is not exactly useful. Remember for 3 months. Thank you, buddy. Remember on 9/12/2012, Obama went to a fundraiser. I don't get that reference. Do you get that reference?
I'm going to look it up right now.
Sam Josh with the 2 saying Biden did the same is tu quo que fallacy. Well, I don't think the point is to say that Biden did it too. I think the point is to say that in order to say that Trump is corrupt, you're using the standard of when there's smoke, there's fire. But if we apply that standard to Biden, you'd have to say that Biden's corrupt. But you don't want to say Biden is corrupt because you're applying a different standard in each area. I don't think it's I don't think the point is to say it's okay because Biden did it. I think the point is more to expose a double standard.
It was the day after Benghazi.
Oh, the day after Benghazi. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, good reference. Sam Josh with the 2. Unironically, Dev's video on fascism is peak. Oh, don't make me watch a Dev video. All right. Taylor with the 5. Trump's sin was he ran as a conservative and he didn't get the memo that as a conservative, he was supposed to maintain a 2008 DNC policy status quo. This, I think, is actually true. I think that like the big thing that Trump did that pissed people off is that he was effective. He was effective in rolling back the progressive status quo. Like the did you see the memo on disparate impact that DOJ put out? Oh shit, this was the craziest thing I've seen in a long time. So this is a little bit of a deep cut, so forgive me. We have this crazy fucking system in our country where employers cannot give aptitude tests for most jobs. And they can't give aptitude tests for most jobs because when you give aptitude tests, they almost always have a disparate impact on the basis of race, and it opens you up to crazy lawsuits. So people can't do that. But because you can't give aptitude tests, you need to get a proxy for IQ, and the proxy for IQ is college. But that's like a $200,000 proxy, and it's a really bad proxy. And then we needed affirmative action because the admission standards for colleges had a disparate impact. So like this disparate impact theory has basically completely warped the job pipeline, is costing Americans hundreds of thousands of dollars, and is based on this insane premise that if you can show a disparate impact, that that's inherently a problem, which is just not true. And like him attacking that is like, that's rolling back decades of government policy. Now, it's not government policy that I think deserves to stand the test of time. So I support him in his efforts to do it, but that's the sort of thing that really pisses people off about him. So if you go ahead.
That's equity as a standard. Like, that's wild. I didn't realize it was this bad.
Oh yeah, dude, it's fucking crazy.
Wow.
It's fucking crazy. Like, don't you think like employers giving like IQ tests would be like think about you. If you're 18, you're like, well, maybe I don't need to go to college because I can go get trained at a job and they're going to give me an IQ test. So they know I'm a smart guy and they'll hire me. And then they'll pay me a low wage because I don't have college, and they'll train me up. Like, how do you show your employer that you're capable without going to college if they can't give you an aptitude test? That's fucking nuts.
That's wild. It's the same people that want to do student loans. So like you're guaranteeing that there's always going to be a pipeline of people going into college. You're guaranteeing that they're going to have unlimited amounts of government money to spend. And then those colleges can just jack their admissions up to whatever the fuck that they want and make as much money off the government. It's kind of wild. They literally just set up a pipeline to funnel people into degrees they probably don't need.
Yeah, and this is the issue with disparate impact as a theory, is that it creates legally, what it does is it creates a burden shift. Like it doesn't win you the case, but if you show disparate impact, the burden shifts to the company to show that they weren't being racist, basically. And that burden shift means that you have a very expensive lawsuit on your hands, right? You're not going to win early. You're going to be stuck in court. You're going to be paying lawyers. And because you're doing that, you just can't do it. It's too expensive. So you're basically like the process is the punishment. Like there's no way to actually bypass this in this universe. So like this is again the sort of thing where it's like we had many conservative presidents who did not target this, that didn't do anything about it. And Trump is effective in combating things like this, which is why he's reviled. Like what do you mean? Our temporary protective status programs have been ongoing for 30 years uninterrupted, and it's illegal to terminate them. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, what do you mean it's illegal to terminate the temporary program?
They were supposed to be 30 days when they were first introduced. 30 days to 35 years. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's fucking wild. I mean, like my favorite one though, the one that really cracks me up is when people are starting to say like, we need more immigration because without it, Social Security is going to run out of money. And it's like, wait, hold on. You created a broken system, and to solve it, you want to break our immigration policy. Like this is some wild shit where it's like, it's the classic, we're going to create a problem and then we're going to demand more government power to solve the problem that we created?
That's my argument against free trade. We made all these regulations, worker protections, taxes, climate protections, and now it's so expensive to hire an American worker that we have to offshore goods in order to save money. Why don't we actually just deregulate the United States?
Yeah. Well, this is the problem when you have inconsistent policy. Free trade is wonderful. Just like, by the way, like immigration can be very, very wonderful if you have consistent policies in place that facilitate that. Like, to your example, free trade is great if your economy is sufficiently deregulated that you can be competitive in that marketplace. But if you're going to get fucked in that marketplace because you've overregulated yourself, free trade starts seeming like might not be that great an idea, which is why places like Europe have so many trade barriers, because they have a lot of regulations, so they can't do free trade in a lot of areas, and they don't as a result. They have like all kinds of typically they call them something else. Like they'll call them like a health and safety regulation or something like this in order to limit the amount of trade that comes in. But they do it for the exact same reason that you just said, which is that they will not be competitive on a global marketplace, so they're not going to participate in the global marketplace.
So this is a little off topic, but how much have you looked into Graham Plattner?
You mean the dude who had what's his name in the Tarantino movie, Inglourious Bastards? The fucking Nazi detective, on his hat he had the skull that Graham Plattner had tattooed on his chest. That guy?
Yeah, he used to refer to it on Reddit and to ex-girlfriends as his little Tokenov. So he was very, very aware of what it was the entire time. But like that might be something if you want to attack the credibility of Loanerbox to look into, see if he has spoken out about Graham Plattner, maybe it shouldn't be the candidate, or if he's like running defense for him. Because if you're going to call Trump a fascist, a guy with an actual fascist tattoo that he got in Croatia, probably isn't somebody you should support, even if he says he's different now. Because like Trump, there's like no tangible tie to actual fascism. It's like this conceptual theory that he is. Graham Plattner also said that he would, if somebody broke into his house, he would forcefully essay them. And Trump has never said anything even like, compare that to the tape that got released right before the 2016 election about how women will let you do things when you're rich. Like, this is way worse. And like, they're defending it. They're saying it's perfectly fine. They found themselves a Trump, a proto-Trump, like a Trump 2.0, because he's worse in almost everything that they hate about Trump. They love him.
Well, this is actually the thing that I've been trying to explain in vain to people like Whick, who I think has unfortunately missed the boat when it sailed. But progressives can be just as tyrannical as fascists. They just do it differently. A fascist, or let's not even say fascist. Let's just say like a right-wing tyrant. Like, just so I don't use the loaded term. A right-wing tyrant is going to consolidate the power into a strongman, and that strongman might do something tyrannical. The left is going to create a system of boards and bureaucracies and regulations, and it's going to be decentralized and spread across all these different actions. And it will, but that doesn't make it any less tyrannical. Like, look at what Mondami is trying to do in New York, where he's like, okay, what are the pieces he's putting together? Step one, we are going to vigorously enforce housing regulations, landlord issues. If you aren't keeping up to code, we are going to fine the crap out of you. And if you don't pay the fines, we're going to seize your building. Step two, we're going to freeze the rent. We're going to freeze the rent. Now, you can't afford to make all the repairs necessary in order to avoid the fines because you can't raise the rent. So now owning a building is not profitable. So what do you have to do? You have to sell the building and stop being a landlord, or you get the means of production seized by the city. That's socialist tyranny. It's just, it doesn't look quite the same. It has all these extra steps involved, but that's not any less tyrannical. That's wildly tyrannical.
Well, on top of that, there's also his tax. If you own property in New York that you don't live at, you're now going to get a significantly higher tax rate on that property, or you could try to sell it and blah, blah, blah. So the market's going to be completely flooded with people in New York trying to sell property. Nobody wanted to go in there because that's a terrible fucking business investment. If you don't even get to set your rent prices up to match what you have to spend on the expenses to build up that apartment, nobody's going to go in there. The government's going to seize it. They're going to turn it into government housing, and we're going to have a repeat. That's all we get are just repeats of the 70s over again. Like the Jimmy Carter era is back. With like the defunding the police. They never defunded police then, but they did try to get social workers handling certain things, getting police out of certain things, and it worked out then like it worked out now. Not at all. People fucking hated it. It led to crime spikes. So like we're repeating all these things from 40 years ago because the people that were supposed to learn the mistakes either lied or are children and won't look back in history.
So, do you want to stick around and do some call-ins, or do you want to blissfully go to sleep?
I was gonna bail once you started doing call-ins. I'm getting kind of tired, and I gotta work in the morning.
That's totally fair. Well, let me. I think some of the super chats might have been directed at you, so let's see whether or not they were. And then if you want to bail on call-ins, that's totally up to you. Radcon Hazard, one of the most damning quotes they use, very fine people, we now know was due to the SPLC funding the very white ethno-nationalists they claim to fight. Wasn't one of the SPLC heads like having a torrid love affair with a KKK member?
Over $1 million in that account.
That's the funniest thing that's ever happened. Like it just like I think one of the new allegations is that the KKK was attempting to get the SPLC to reimburse them for the expenses of wood and gasoline used in cross burnings. And it's like you can't make this shit up. Like I mean, obviously they have to prove this stuff in court. I don't who knows? Maybe the case falls apart. But like, dear God, and like that's like only one. Like, don't get me started on the there's something called the Climate Justice Project, which is part of the Environmental Learning Institute, where they were basically attempting to make judges activists about climate issues so that certain plaintiffs could win big climate cases against various companies. So like there's all kinds of weird systemic corruption if you want to use corruption in a more broad sense. Jefferson C. Post with the 2, immediate release of body cams improves discourse. It actually does tend to clarify things. I think the BLM movement thought body cams were going to turn out a different way. But by and large, the body cam tends to show that the officer did nothing wrong. Now, there's exceptions, and those exceptions should be prosecuted. But by and large, it goes that way. My listening library with the 2, thanks you so much. As a Dem, Antifa needs to be removed. It's a tumor. I actually thought Antifa was... I always thought it was more of a conspiracy theory until I started reading these indictments. And it's like, oh, no, they're not fucking around. Like they have a whole infrastructure set up. The left supports the rule of utopian ends. Very poetic. Jefferson C. Post has a poetic bent, and thank you for the 2, buddy. Trump refuses to abide by the left's framing. I agree with that. I think that's very much like he doesn't let them set the terms of engagement. Thank you, Jefferson. Blasterbot with the 10. They are louder and more radical because they are losing, and they'll get even more louder and more radical the more they lose. This is why they went after Kirk and not some other more radical man. Well, what do you think? What do you think about that, Tyler? Do you, like, if the left is this furious right now, what would happen if they didn't get a blue wave in the midterms?
Which is not guaranteed. Cook Political Report still has the House as a toss-up and the Senate going to Republicans. So, I don't know. I really think, like, okay, if they lose this next election, maybe they'll finally fucking realize, and it just isn't happening yet. Any voice that stands up, like after 2024, a bunch of voices stand up, like in Texas. The Texas Democrat Party said this trans shit has got to go, and they fucking kicked that guy right out of the party in like a day and a half. So I don't know. I don't think they're going to ramp it down. I think we're going to see a repeat of like 1970s radical violence again.
It's really
maybe they won't bomb the Senate this time.
I do think they convince themselves that they're entitled to a blue wave. So if one doesn't come, I think they're going to say the Supreme Court in the Calais decision basically, gutted the VRA, and that's what allowed the Republicans to be competitive in the House. Therefore, we've got to pack the court. But it's like which I think they're going to say that. But to me, that's like a naked admission where they're saying like, but for a rule that requires us to gerrymander on racial grounds in favor of our base in certain states, basically affirmative action gerrymandering, we aren't competitive. And you took away our affirmative action gerrymandering, and therefore we're not going to win as much as we thought we were going to. Like that's a pretty wild admission, but I think they're going to make it.
You're going to see as well, one, if the Supreme Court rules that people that were birthright citizens are not anymore, I don't think they're going to go to that extreme and retroactively apply it. But if they do, and then if they also take all the illegals out of the country, I think both those two actions, I saw a study that said like both those two actions together would net Republicans like 20 more seats in the House.
The birthright citizenship thing, A, it's going to be fantastic content for me when it comes out. But B, it's politically, it's a fucking win-win. Let's just be clear. Because here's the thing. If Trump wins on birthright citizenship in any way, not even like a big win, if he gets a sliver of a win, then he's the most effective right-leaning president in 100 years, easily. It would be a massive W for him if he got even a partial victory. If the Supreme Court sides against him, what the fuck is the argument at that point that the court is corrupt and on his side? They struck down his tariffs. They struck down his National Guard usage. They struck down his signature domestic policy. Like, what is it that you want from the court that to show that they're not in his pocket more than them striking down his core policies over and over and over again? Like, how does that possibly justify packing the court? So I actually think optically it's good either way, but fingers crossed, if he could get even a partial win on birthright citizenship, that would be sick. Hey, Grid, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you in chat.
Yeah. I think he's kind of a flawed, I guess that most people would agree with this easy take that he's a flawed warrior for the right. But if he is, as you say, the most effective right-wing president in the last 100 years, then all those personality flaws that the left prescribes pretty well very often, all those personality flaws don't really matter. That's just something here and now, and history's not going to remember that. It kind of reminds me of this question I used to ask on debate panels a year or two ago. If we go after all the people like Derek Chauvin on the police force, and we get this hyper aggressive male that goes too hard, doesn't give consideration to criminals, and we take them all out of the police force, are we going to have more Uvaldis? Are we going to have more instances where the cops just sit outside, scared, diddling on their phones? Nobody wants to go in first because nobody has any grit to them. And in a way, Trump is that imperfect warrior that kind of proves that. He's got such audacity and no shame and just all these characteristics that make him almost like a repulsive individual, but such an effective warrior for his political movement.
Well, this is the thing, right? So one of the previous donos said it perfectly. They said he rejects the left's framing, which he does. But the problem is, in order to find a warrior who would reject the left's framing, you have to find somebody when they're like, you're a sexist and a racist, who's like, I don't care that you said that. I don't care at all. It's not going to impact me. I'm not going to change what I'm doing. I don't give a shit that you said that. And it's one thing to do that now, today, because there's a whole permission structure around that now. Like, it's not even that brave anymore to be like, yeah, fuck you. I don't care that you called me names. I'm going to move on with my day. But back in 2016, like after the BLM summer, like to be the kind of guy who like was immune to that charge, that took some big fucking cojones. And yeah, like if you're going to get a guy like that, there might be some entailments to that. Like he might not be, a perfect, gentle politician in a bunch of other ways. Like, I don't think you're going to find a guy who has that mindset, who's then also pliable and tame in all the ways you'd expect a politician to be.
Yeah, I think there's a correlation there because he is definitely outside the political norm. He doesn't play these rules that public perception says you need to play. And you know what? His favorability suffers for it pretty fucking hard. It's much lower than his presidential approval, generally like 5 points lower. So, yeah. But at the end of the day, you're saying he could potentially be the most right-wing president in 100 years. Maybe that's what it takes. Maybe breaking out of this mold and getting some people with some audacity into the political fold is what it's going to take to actually get politics to move forward to the next step.
Well, I mean, like, look, he would have to. I'm not saying he's going to win birthright citizenship. I think the odds are, in some ways, stacked against him. It would be a huge win if he got it. But like, he's one piece of the puzzle away because some of the stuff that he's accomplished, like even like Roe v. Wade, that's like that's a big deal for the right. Like, so these are like not small changes. He's been deregulating. He's been attacking DEI. He's been attacking equity. He's been effective in a bunch of ways that previous presidents were not. And now if he could get something lasting, that would be where his legacy would be. Because the problem is a lot of the stuff he's done can be reversed quite easily. If you got like a win on birthright citizenship though, oh shit, that's more of a long-term win. Last one, Taylor with the 2. How is democratic communism less tyrannical than fascism? It isn't. It's often more tyrannical than fascism. But I don't know, Tyler, if you disagree.
I think they're different systems. They function differently. It's kind of a weird argument for me to figure out which one's slightly more fascist than the other. It's both not good.
Both very bad. Rupert Lowe UK is famous for I don't care. I think you're going to get a lot of that because I think I don't care is often the correct answer to being slandered by someone. Hey, Tyler, thank you for helping me with my prep. I know you have work tomorrow and you're being a good, responsible employee who's going to get some sleep. So thank you for coming by. Gang, if you have not subscribed to Tyler's YouTube channel, which he never fucking promotes, then why not? Tyler does a lot of debates. He goes on panels. He helps people prep like he did tonight. Go support Tyler and his channel, Average Debate Enjoyer. Like, give him some subs, give him some love. Tyler, what do you have coming up?
I actually am on a hiatus. Doing some work stuff, trying to learn some things, AI programming. I'm trying to learn language models a little bit better and how to produce full multi-level programs with, I think you and I have been talking about that in the background a little bit. So when I get that, a couple of these under my belt, into my resume, whatever, into a GitHub that I can show people to be worth more money in the marketplace, I'll come back probably a couple of weeks. And then we have GridCon. Grid's in the chat right now. GridCon, Gibbs is going to be the host in it. My opponent's going to be Vince Wilson, I think his name is, and I'm going to fucking kick some ass.
Yeah, go to watch at Grid Motorsports, who's in the chat right now. He puts on a really good adjacent event to DebateCon. A bunch of people that are friends of the channel are going to be there. I'm not going to be there this year, but this is the sort of thing that in the future I'm probably going to be trying to go to. So show some love to Grid and Tyler as Tyler takes the debate stage. And Tyler, thanks for breaking your hiatus to come on the show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's been real.
I appreciate you, buddy.
Take it easy.
Well, have a good night.
Yes, sir.
Okay.